am your host, Shavon Meyers on Talking Wellness.
Hello, everyone. Aroldo Ferreira here in Talking Wellness.
And we are sponsored by the Kiva Centers. The Kiva Centers is a nationally recognized, Indigenous-led, peer-run trauma-informed organization. The organization focuses on development and promotion of healing communities for people experiencing different social class impacts like trauma, mental health, and substance use. And you are listening to Unity Radio 97.9 FM, Worcester's Community Connection. All right, welcome. So how's it going? How's everything at Kiva?
It's going good. We're actually moving to a new location. It's moving day, it's moving week, which is hard, but we're very hopeful that the new location will bring so much more community-based support and impact. We have been in this mission for a long time with mental health reform and humanization and care. By bringing peer-led voices into decision making.
I see.
Often we talk about peer-to-peer support and how the community can access peer support in some of our locations, but we do a lot of work in advocacy and understanding where voices that matter within the system should be heard and included. So it's going. We do have different places and parts of Kiva. We do have, of course, our Kiva on Shrewsbury Street, our new location that's open for the community. People can get to for all varieties of reasons, from art to any other wellness tools, peer-to-peer support. We're open there Monday to Thursday from 10 to 4, and then on Fridays we extend later with a karaoke and pizza to finish up the week. And wonderful thing about the Kiva Centers and the offerings that we have is that no costs. You don't need a insurance referral. We know that it's really hard nowadays to get mental health.
Absolutely.
Mental health support. The waiting is long for wonderful mental health support, and having a community-based support that doesn't have some of those barriers is important.
Absolutely. Now, not many people may know your role with Kiva, right? Because you've been at Kiva for a very long time. So tell us some more about your role and how you are ingrained in Kiva and its purpose.
Well, I'm the oldest staff that Kiva has. I was besides, of course, my CEO Brenda, but I was there before everyone else, which is wow to me. I'm the oldest staff in time of employment. Those of you who know me, I've been 38 for a long time, and I will continue to be 38. Though my birth certificate says otherwise. Anyhow, I've done every role in Kiva at this point, from cleaning, moving the floor, doing direct services, being in the respites when we in the midst of COVID, doing support overnight. Right now, well, for the past 7 years, I am the director of the Certified Peer Specialist Program. So they're in all but 2 states in the U.S. there is a peer certification program. Here in Massachusetts, we have one too. It's very well recognized throughout the U.S. It's one of the best programs that there are, according to folks. And I am the director of that program. So what I do is I welcome, prepare, certify the folks that are intending to become certified peers in their careers. So we service through that hub of Kiva, the continuing education. We service all mental health agencies throughout the Commonwealth that will send their employees to be certified through our process.
Right.
So we're funded by the Department of Mental Health. And I'm like the maestro, because there's a lot of folks that are part of that. It's different than direct support, because now we're working with adult education. So we have folks that teach the courses. We have folks that grade homework and exams, that fix our platform, the Kiva Academy. So it's a different wing of the Kiva family, different than It's very competitive to get in. Every year, well, every round, we have a different training every season. Every season, they get about 140 applicants for about 35 slots.
Oh, wow. And the slots are for what again?
To get into the training,
Okay,
to be
gotcha.
trained as certified peer specialist. So
Okay.
folks will have to send applications, send references, be interviewed. The folks who get in then go into 65
Wow.
plus hours of training,
Yep.
followed by a state exam. So if you do all the steps, then you become certified in a Commonwealth of Massachusetts as a certified
By
peer specialist.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. That's cool.
It's cool.
And believing in its purpose, right? Because some people truly believe, like, if someone has a lived experience, they're very well supported. And why do we believe in that? Why is that helpful? To some people, why does it help them feel supported? And a lot of the times, it's because we resonate with people who may look like us or who go through the same experiences as we do, and and it starts from very early on. So it is important to make sure we are relatable to others and to be able to support them in that sense. And last time we were here, we talked about that and the significance. So a lot of people don't know what Kiva stands for, so it's good to kind of get into that and where that name came from. I think Brenda explained it pretty well last time, but just kind of to recap, and then also understanding the Kiva way and how we have peers supporting others. Like, every program has its standards and its unique approach. So it's good to understand that process and what that looks like for people who would like to sign up to have a peer specialist.
And wonderful that you said that, because there's human to human connection that I think is supportive in all parts of life. In all parts of the journey, period, whether it's a mental health journey or journeys in general. I mean, we have seen AAs or women's group all over the world that have been very supportive.
Right.
When it comes to peer practices, though, lived experience alone isn't the only ingredient that creates a certified peer specialist. So there's schooling involved. There's techniques, boundaries that professionals need to learn. Folks need to learn how to share, not to share, how to support someone without doing for, but really doing with. So it's a profession that's built in that builds in connection. It's not a replacement service. It's a complementary service. I think certified peer specialists, licensed social workers, clinicians, I think every person plays a very important, vital role.
I have a quick question, though, because if someone were to have a psychiatrist until they get their recipe for medication, having a peer specialist, does that automatically mean that someone has to have like a clinical therapist or social worker?
I love your question. And the answer is no. I love all your questions, Shavon. I think they're very smart and thoughtful. And I think the answer is no.
Okay.
So the way to use an analogy to answer your question, like let's say that I have a house task to do, and I have a toolbox, and I have just a hammer instead of a toolbox. Well, depending on what I want to accomplish, the hammer is just good enough. If there's more things that I want to discover, understand, balance it out, I might need to bring other tools to complement that toolbox. And I think wellness is just that.
Makes sense.
I believe that it really what matters is for each person to understand what works for them and for what they want to achieve. So perhaps for some people, sometimes they're working with a psychiatrist and it's working for whatever they need at that moment or for moments to come. And great. For me, it was slightly different. I needed a little more tools for my own wellness journey that I had to bring in. And by tools, I mean professionals that have different expertises, that have different approaches, that had different learnings and aha moments. So for me, that multitude of support was needed for my own journey.
Right.
I like to say that clinical support was wonderful because it helped save my physical self. I needed that.
Right,
I needed that
absolutely.
shelter and that guidance.
Yeah.
But I also needed as professionals with lived experience, peer to peer, to save my non-physical self, the parts of me that others couldn't touch or see, my sense of self, my self-esteem, my sense of belonging, my sense of trust. I had wonderful professionals that supported me to take care of my ground basic living. And I have folks that were able to, in parallel with those, to say, okay, what is it that you want next for your life?
Right. Absolutely.
What would you do if you weren't afraid? That question's scary.
Yeah.
It's part of our training though. What would you do if you weren't afraid? So I think that I think I answered your question with the analogy of the toolbox. Now maybe a set of 3 tools will do just fine for what I want to accomplish. Maybe one tool, maybe a multitude of tools. So the Kiva Centers bring a variety of tools that can be complementary or not, depending on the person's journey.
Absolutely.
And it goes in alignment with the name that we have. Kiva Centers are indigenous, Native Americans actually, chambers that people have utilized to go in for self-reflection, for understanding, and walking out of them better. I actually visited a Kiva Center, an actual it's like a cave,
like a cave, Kiva. Yeah,
it's like a Kiva cave, like it's a construction.
Wow.
And that's what we want to do. I think no one but that person has the recipe of what would work for them. I like to say all the time, every time that I have the opportunity, that people are experts in their own healing.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. You know, a lot of the times clinically, we use people to help guide us in session.
Absolutely.
Some people may think it's the other way around, and then you get lost, and then the accountability is on you for the healing of the individual. But it's really about, allowing the individual to be a part of that process so that we're not handicapping or making anyone disabled in a sense, where they're not dependent.
I love that. I love that. And that sense of autonomy, dignity of risk,
absolutely,
ability to take risks for themselves. And when you say that, I a big smile in my heart, because it reminds me how professions can coexist healthily in benefit of the society at large.
Absolutely. And I always tell clients, like, I would love to take your money, but by the end of, as you graduate and you get better and you progress and you graduate from therapy, I would like you to wholeheartedly be on your own and, be able to use the tools. And sometimes we space the sessions out so that people can take a break and we can say, okay, how did it go over the last 2 weeks? How did you utilize the tools that you have? How do you feel? Do you have any questions and that sort of thing? So it's definitely same sort of a reflection.
It is a very similar reflection, and I love how you're saying, it's really about the person that you support. I don't think those of us who went to school for any social work related professions we went for money. I would have become a lawyer or something different. But it's the heart. It's the heart. How rewarding to see someone feeling well.
Absolutely.
And what wellness really is, because each one of us have a different definition or different goal. There were times in my own journey that wellness would be just.
And we can absolutely talk about that really right after the break. I'm your host, Shavon Meyers on Talking Wellness, and you're listening to Unity Radio 97.9 FM, Worcester's Community Connection.
Unity Radio. Worcester, we've got you.
Tune into the Sustaining Life with Susan Teulet And together, we will find our way to a healthier, healing lifestyle by listening to empowering stories of overcoming our struggles. Join me, Susan Tioulette, on the Sustainable Life every Wednesday from 5 to 6 on Unity Radio 97.9 FM, Worcester's Community Connection. See you soon.
Life is like a roller coaster. It has its high and low moments, zooming through our lives. Sometimes we feel excited and full of joy, and other times we feel numb to the world around us. Low moments are a part of life. They help us cherish the good times. That's why it's important to reach out when life's lows stop us in our tracks. Connect with someone now. Call 211 or text 988.
At KivaCenters.org, we believe every story matters and healing starts with being heard. The Kiva Centers are here to explore the paths of mental health, recovery, and wholeness with you. Visit KivaCenters.org, a statewide leader in peer-led support and recovery services, from Worcester to Western Mass. More information is available at KIVACenters.org. Kiva is lighting the way forward.
Support for Unity Radio 97.9 FM is provided by Ruth H. and Warren A. Ellsworth Foundation, established in 1964, focusing on education, social services, and youth aids, and the Mildred H. McAvoy Foundation, giving primarily to health, educational, cultural, and human service organization. Unity Radio, Worcester's Community Connection.
Hi, this is Raymond Lopolito, the general manager of the Worcester Smiles Football Club, and you're listening to Unity Radio, Worcester's Community Connection.
Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Shavon Meyers, and Talking Wellness. And you're listening. Yep, and you're listening to Unity Radio 97.9 FM, Worcester's Community Connection. And we are sponsored by Kiva Centers, and we have Aroldo here representing. I'm so glad you're here because I know you're so ingrained in Kiva, and you know a lot about like the start to finish and what they do and the purpose and how it's evolved and changed over the years. And then, so that's really exciting to know that it started out as an idea and it's growing. And like how I talked about before in a radio show, Eclectic Mosaic Wellness, you know, how me and my business partner were working on that. And it's a mental health organization. And really we're trying to, the idea is to really, with me and my business partner, take from the experiences that we have been through with clients and their stories and really use our approaches to bring competent services for BIPOC people who are of color, Indigenous, and LGBTQ population, and really offer culturally sensitive services. And what that means is not necessarily that we're experts on it. It's that, you know, people like things that are relational, people understanding, again, lived experiences, whether it be culturally or just the understanding, you know, because I have all types of people come into my office. They don't have to be of color. And just knowing that someone may understand their circumstances without feeling judged or having that listening ear. And then we're looking at HIV affirming services. Eventually we'll be working on that. So just really not just sticking to counseling, but really kind of spreading out in other areas to service the community. But we're starting small now in Massachusetts. We're trying to finish up all the credentialing. You go on our website, eclecticmosaicwellness.org. You'll see all of the insurances that we've taken, that we take and that we've just got credentialed with. So I'm really excited about it. We've had a lot of referrals coming in, and we still do, and just trying to get Mass Health working with that. That's a doozy, getting that application completed. And it's a process in itself to get credentialed. You really do have to sit and take the time to fill out the paperwork and get everything situated, which is why, you know, I see why people pay other people to do it. Other people are professional and that can do it for you. But it's good to walk yourself through that experience. Like I can't imagine that you and Brenda, like with Kiva, the rewards of knowing your company inside out and knowing the work and tools that you've put into it to allow it to grow and flourish into that big idea that we've started with, right? And so it's like, the credentialing was a headache, but at the end of the day, we have like 10 insurances under our belt. And that was a really good experience because I know how it works instead of having someone else do it, right? So it's like just building the company and being the architect behind it.
I love all that you're saying and continuing the building this company. Right before break, you asked me about the name for the Kiva Center. So
Yes.
it walked me through this name choice for the organization, the Elected Mosaic Wellness.
Yep.
It's intriguing.
Yep.
It invites one to reflect, but it invite us to the idea here. What was the idea? What's the name choice came from?
So Eclectic Mosaic Wellness is a doozy. And so we were like, I had to tell my business partner, can we say EMW or eclectic, in case some people have trouble. So we can call it EMW. So that's why I like it too, because it sounds great. It rolls off the tongue really nice, right?
Yeah.
But eclectic is really looking at different modalities and approaches that one uses and services. And a lot of the times we may have someone come into session that they may not like the traditional CBT or journaling. They may have things that they've ingrained in and that they know that may work for them or make them comfortable. And you have different type of spiritualities coming in. If someone's into, paganism or Christianity, okay, so we'll use tools from there to help you, what grounds you, maybe holding a cross, wearing a cross, if you like your spirituality, maybe meditating, manifesting, affirmations, and that sort of thing that may help. So I feel like a lot of the times as therapists, we tend to stay stuck on what we've learned in the programs that we go to get our degrees, instead of being flexible and thinking outside of the box to really understand how we can better support the individual. And Mosaic is just accumulation of pieces that bring people together collectively, who you are as a person, your personality, your sexuality, your background, your family circumstances, your life circumstances, and then really respecting you as an individual with that. And that ties into the approaches that we use. So, so I was really excited about that whole idea. I'm like, that's it. That's what we stand for. And that's what we're getting. We have people who are blatantly calling us and saying, I would like to have a Black therapist, or we're looking for friendly queer services, that sort of thing. I would like to talk to a gay male, or, we have people from all over, as far as, not all over, but as far as like their backgrounds and the differences that we see coming in, which is awesome, and not that we are rejecting anyone who doesn't fall under that umbrella, but we have traditional counseling as well. It's just that we really want to kind of bring that specialty in so that people who may have mental health experiences under that umbrella are not uncomfortable asking or requesting it.
Understood. And who would best benefit from your service? So is it a referral hub for therapy, or is it something different?
Well, anyone can benefit. We have, I'm obviously taking on clients and I have a strong background over the years. My business partner does as well. We have someone who has their LCSW who's really good with people. But if we are looking for people, they must be trained to not be intimidated by people in the LGBT community or people who are of BIPOC. Because a lot of the times we do tend to get that, and you can sense that based off of what clients are saying and how they're feeling, and people may be nervous and not understand. Like I have one client, she's very ingrained in the church. And as an African-American woman, that's culturally, sometimes that's how it is, and I get it. A lot of the drama stems from that as well, knowing the church can be a little chaotic and drama. And the therapist just kept telling her in the past, our past therapist just kept telling her to just kept cutting her off and not understanding her experiences and just telling her to leave the church, leave that behind and that sort of thing. And then she felt like she couldn't talk. So when she came to me, she had a lot to talk about. And I really do believe talk therapy is a technique. Some people just need that to get things off their chest. They may have not had a voice to let things out, until they bleed dry of it. And then it's like, okay, how do we move forward from this? So I think anyone can benefit if they have a unique situation, unique circumstances, if they're not ready to reveal a lot, but feel like they want that understanding, or they want to learn how to be in therapy, where are the people to go to? Some people don't know how.
So walk me through the process. Like
Mm-hmm.
I am looking, for
Mhm.
example, for a cultural sensitive therapist.
Yep.
How do I find that through EMW?
Yep. You go onto our website,
Okay.
Eclectic Mosaic Wellness, because we are telehealth based, but we are community based as well for local. So like if I have someone in Chicopee or Palmer, maybe close to Palmer, like Worcester area, I can come out into the community because that's not too far for me and I may meet someone in their home or I may meet someone at the library and have services. So if you go online, you'll see that there's a referral tab. You go in and you fill the form that comes straight to our email.
Understood.
Mhm.
Understood. And
then
go on.
and then we follow up. I'll email, someone will get back to you in 24 to 48 hours, or I'll give a call and say, okay, hey, I've got your referral form. What type of insurance do you have? And then we check the insurance. And then once we verify that your insurance is good to go, then we talk about scheduling.
Understood. At what point of the process does the person have the opportunity to explain what is it that he, she, or they are looking for in terms of support? Is that when they first fill up the referral? Is that on the phone?
Yeah, over the phone when we follow up. What are you looking for? Usually there's a section in there to put, like, if you're looking for couples therapy, if you have trauma, and we talk a little bit about that so that we can set you up with a therapist who's competent enough to deal with the situation.
Wonderful.
Like right now I do the couples because that's all I do a whole bunch of therapy, but no one's really experienced in couples like I am. So I do have room in my schedule to do the couples therapy. So I'm taking that on.
Understood.
And we really want to hire people again who really fit what EMW is about. We don't discriminate. Obviously, we take anyone who really has good experience, but we do want that diversity there.
So let me understand, just for clarity, when you say you want to hire people, you're also speaking about folks getting service through EMW. So there's two groups of folks we're talking about. So EMW is looking to hire therapists, professionals.
Yep.
And EMW is also open for the community and the public who might benefit from the support that you have to offer.
Correct.
Did I get that right?
Yes.
All right. So if you are a therapist, culture sensitive therapist that is looking to be connected with a organization that is connecting the community with that type of service, EMW might be your place.
It's the person. And we know what a toxic environment looks like. We do not have tolerance for it. We just want people to be comfortable, relaxed, and I know a majority of it is telehealth, but I'm here to supervise and support. I'm always checking in. I don't want to create that distance. Like it's just dry on the other end. And it's like, are you alive? Are you surviving? So I'm checking in weekly. I'm also doing trainings if people have issues somewhere, like we hired someone who may not have that many experience with one-to-one. So a lot of directorial experience, but one-to-one. So we go into like the role plays and that sort of thing.
So the professionals who would possibly become affiliated with you not only have the platform and that you worked very hard on building with all the insurances and whatnot. Not only they have that as a support, but they also have the human part of support coming from you with training, development, checking in, possible supervision.
Yes. And I've learned that being a director at different agencies for about 5 to 6 years, that's how I got people in the door, and that's how I kept them, and that's how I helped the mental health department grow. It only changes when management wants you to do something different and it just throws that off. And then, you're just like, but now having EMW, I can continue to do it my way and, keep the house full. And I love that support and giving that one-to-one. And, I've done mentorship earlier on in my career. So it's really exciting to give back in that way as well.
Wonderful. And what is the dream for EMW? Like, what is it? How do you see that organization being in the near future?
We do want to expand. We want to expand in Arizona, Connecticut, a couple of other states. We're starting with Mass first. We definitely want to venture out into other departments like the HIV affirming, partnerships with other agencies, and that sort of thing. But we'll talk more about this after the break. I'm your host, Shavon Meyers on Talking Wellness, and you're listening to Unity Radio, 97.9 FM, Worcester Community Connection.
something wrong with my line. What's up, Worcester? I'm Angela Gray, and you're listening to Unity Radio 97.9, Worcester's Community Connection. When I dial my baby's number, I get a click every time.
This is McGruff the Crime Dog, and I need you to help me take a bite out of crime. Another teenager, victim to fake pills bought from social media. This doesn't seem like a drug deal, but it definitely is. Should buying prescription pills be that easy? Many fake pills contain fentanyl, and an amount small enough to fit on the tip of a pencil can be lethal. So listen, before buying pills from social media, think again. Learn more at mcgruffpsa.org and go for Rio. Brought to you by USPTO and the National Crime Prevention Council.
Tune in to Affirmations with Alex, and together we will affirm our way to a healthier mindset by listening to empowering messages. Hi, I'm Alex from Affirmations with Alex. Join me every Monday through Thursday at 10 p.m. on Unity Radio 97.9 FM, Worcester's Community Connection.
Hello, I'm Pastor Sharon Henderson of Covenant St. Andrew's United Methodist Church, 24 Hamilton Street, Worcester, Mass. We welcome you to worship with us every Sunday at 10 a.m. Let's worship together and love one another. I'm Sharon Henderson, pastor of Covenant St. Andrew's United Methodist Church, 24 Hamilton Street. We welcome you to worship with us at 10 a.m. every Sunday. Let's do it together and let's make peace.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Graham Anderson, also known as Positively Suzanne, host of Black in Business, Thursdays at 5 p.m. on Unity Radio 97.9. Black in Business is a series of conversations with influential members of the Black business community. These entrepreneurs knows what it means to risk everything to create successful businesses and spark positive changes in the community. So join us. Again, I'm Suzanne Graham Anderson, also known as Positively Suzanne, right here on Black in Business, Thursdays at 5 p.m. on Unity Radio 97.9, Worcester's Community Connection.
This is Unity Radio 97.9 Worcester.
Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Shavon Meyers on Talking Wellness, and you're listening to Unity Radio 97.9 FM, Worcester's Community Connection, and we are back. So we talked a little bit about EMW and, what that was about. And you really did, just quickly, you really did bring up a good question during the break about who would it be good for? And I know we talked about it before, but just to clarify again, for people who have not had a match, which is really great, and someone who's afraid to be in therapy but wants to explore it, that's fine too.
And it's wonderful that we speak about that because going to support, whether it's traditional support, clinical support, as therapy, or even peer support, it's wonderful to find a connection with that supporter. And those of us who are part of emerging communities, BIPOC folks, rainbow folks, or whatever have you, it becomes harder and harder to find that connection from the supporting person.
Right.
So I love your mission of creating or being very mindful of bringing that.
Right.
Because myself, I'm part of the rainbow community. It's harder and harder to find a gay therapist or a brown therapist or a therapist that is trans, for instance, and having a hub that is culturally diverse as you were building, electedly putting together as a mosaic is really, really important. And I love how you also mindful of HIV awareness in our society. I think that still is a huge taboo.
Yeah.
I think
credits to my partner because he did bring that up and he's been shooting out all these ideas, and I said, that's awesome. And I said, I just when we reached that point, because he wanted to jump right into it, I said, but we want to do it right. We don't want to just bombard everyone with everything and it just becomes like a mess. I said, so let's focus on the telehealth, and then let's sit and talk about let's do some research and let's see what's needed and what are the barriers to treatment for that. I mean, are you guys exploring that, or do you know much about that aspect in treatment?
There's two parts of what we're talking. One is the diversity. And Kiva is one of the very few organizations where the great majority of our management team is BIPOC. So I talked to Vesper, my colleague, for years now, that people like himself or myself, we probably would not have had similar opportunities for growth career-wise in other agencies like we have had in Kiva. So we're very mindful of representation. We're very mindful of the community. I mean, the community is all of that in terms of diversity. So we want to replicate that. So the minute you walk into our doors, you are seeing all of that diversity.
Right.
Because it matters. Representation matters. It matters to
Absolutely.
all of us.
Right.
That's one part. When it comes to the other part, we've trained some certified peer specialists for the AIDS Project Worcester.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
So there are. We've trained. I forgot the person's name. Well, anyways, but they had a certified peer specialist that used the practices learned through our training to provide peer-to-peer support within AIDS Project Worcester. I'm not sure if that person still works for AIDS Project Worcester, but it's well known to folks that have that came through our learning process to bring that in there, and wonderful, and more of that needs to happen.
Absolutely. And I think I'm excited. This is just, I mean, as a therapist, I really just got tired of, and I really felt bad for people coming in session and being like, I have one lady who's not even of color, and she's just, I'm glad I can do this because, my therapist just was so like, this is not a venting session, and close my case and tell me, like, if I'm not going to do the work, close my case. And we're getting to the point, and I get it. And I understand that aspect of where the therapist comes from. I'm not putting any therapist down, but also we want to understand, why can't we get there? Why can't we make improvements and progress and let's understand it? And there's a technique called confrontation. We're not arguing with the clients. We might say, okay, well, if you're having issues with your partner, and you're in a same-sex relationship, then what are we not trying to see about the situation? Are we in denial? Are we avoiding? That sort of thing comes later once you build the trust and you allow them to vent and say what they need to say. I had one client, I might have said this before, she said her therapist said she sucked, that, her life is the way it is and she sucks. And this is why, and all this other stuff. So we have to understand, like, why does that happen as therapists? Is it burnout? Is it because we lack the skills? If I'm not too hip to something, I might feel weird about it and I may not do it. Eating disorders and working with that was like, and I had to really understand myself as to why that is a huge challenge, but really just looking at it as an addiction, because it is an addiction, and we all tend to worry about our body image. And again, we try not to project, but it's just, understanding, like, eating disorders was a huge challenge for me, and it still is a little.
we do try to project, but we make assumptions. I think the world is in the assumption epidemic that a lot of folks are assuming things about others.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the supporting role, how do we drop down the assumptions? And often some of us in the supporting field going to that rescue mode, that we want that to rescue that person from whatever feelings and experiences they might be having.
Absolutely.
How do we avoid that? I don't know if you're familiar with the short video called "It's Not About the Nail."
No, I gotta write that down.
Oh, I have to send it to you.
Right.
Where there's a young lady with a nail in the forehead.
Yep.
And then her partner is trying to say, well, there's a nail, and she's insisting that she wants to focus on something else.
Right.
So going back to culture sensitivity, how also as supporters that we're not focusing on what we think is important at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, we might work with folks from emerging communities, but they have jobs and relationships, and or I shouldn't say we have jobs, relationships, and other matters that we want to discuss. Our ethnicity, our gender, background isn't necessarily what is the matter that we want to talk about and discuss.
Absolutely. And I think it's all about like, changing the channel in your mind when you're sitting in front of a client, because a lot of people, it's not as easy as it seems. If you have a lot of trauma, in order to be a healer, you have to heal, right? And I think we can all get triggered at times. And so a lot of the times it's me just sitting up there being like, this is not about me, and I'm here to help the client, and that is my focus right now. It's helping this individual with their problem. I tell people self-talk is a technique, right? Because you derail those thoughts and you refocus on the client and you're there for them and you understand, okay, and also their insurance is paying and that sort of thing. And then that's how at least I kind of distinguish my issues from the client, because we may run into similar issues and it's like, well, I can't put that on them. I can't talk about myself and be like, okay, well, yeah, I went through that too, and this is what's going on, so I really just try to change that channel in my mind, and it gets better, so it's, and I'm glad at the end of the day, the person is feeling happy and they're feeling positive. And, usually in the first session, it's really just to get them, really just get a lot out, and over time we're getting deeper, we're understanding ourselves. And a lot of therapists are afraid to challenge their clients. But guess what? Clients want to be challenged. Clients like the reality of things. They know a lot. They intuitively try to know more about us than we know about us. So we do have to put up like and it's crazy because, yes, if you're going to tell someone all your business, you want to know who you're talking to, but technically they're not supposed to. But I think in a sense where they try to figure you out and you just really have to redirect and make it about them. But I think, for the most part, it's all about making sure that we're there for them and we're supporting them.
Right.
And being realistic.
And often folks mistake lived experience role with just sharing what happened to us. But there's a lot of what you were saying that's built into the certification training on understanding your own biases, your own limitations, that it's about the person, how to support the person without interjecting with your own things. And that is also important part of the process of really learning and how to not to be the rescuer for folks, as I said earlier. How,
because guess what? People don't like fantasies. They don't like, they don't like people to tell them fairy tales, right?
Well, it depends on the person. It depends on the person. I've learned in my career that people like all different kind of things. I was just talking to friends this morning. I was like, I don't like honesty in every settings in my life. There's sometimes I want you to just tell me it's going to be okay.
Well, I can't tell a client because I have a lot of clients. I tell you, I'm dealing with there's a bit on my caseload, but people don't like if I have a client, we can't tell a client to leave their husband or their spouse, but we can tell them to work on their self-esteem and what's appropriate and what's not, right? And that's the difference. But we can't. A lot of people may take that as it's okay, it'll be all right, it'll get better. And to me, I'm like, this doesn't sound like it's getting better, right? Like, how do we work on this? And how do we, work on? I had one client. I'm like, your spouse is doing this and that. There was a boundary I had to say to her. You need to tell him then to leave. And when he's ready to be stable in your home and be respectful about that, then maybe that's a good time for him to come back. And he did, but it was just like, come on now, it was just a mess. And I had to be like, at this point, how am I helping this client? And am I harming them by saying, okay, just deal with that? That's okay. I'm your host, Shavon Meyers, on Talking Wellness, and you're listening to Unity Radio 97.9 FM, Worcester's Community Connection.
Unity Radio. Worcester, we got you.
Support for Unity Radio 97.9 FM is provided by United Way of Central Mass, aiming to improve the community and break the cycle of poverty, and the Wusaks Foundation, seeking to make dreams come true for families in areas of education, social justice, recreation, and conquering cancer. Unity Radio, Worcester's Community Connection.
Hi, I'm Shavon Meyers, your host on Talking Wellness, presented by the Kiva Centers on Unity Radio 97.9 FM. As a licensed mental health professional and leader in the field, I believe every story matters and healing starts with being heard. Whether you're navigating life's challenges or lifting others through theirs, I'm here to explore the paths of mental health, recovery, and wholeness. Tune into Talking Wellness on Unity Radio 97.9 FM every Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for honest conversation and inspiration. This program is sponsored by the Kiva Centers, a statewide leader in peer-led support and recovery services. From Worcester to Western Mass, Kiva is lighting the way forward. Talking Wellness, every voice, every journey. Speak up, be heard, and of course, be well.
Recreation Worcester is a free year-round program for youth run by the City of Worcester. The program enriches this city's youth in athletics, arts, academics, and social-emotional learning activities. Food is provided for free of charge for all youth participating in the program. Learn more at the Worcester Recreation website, www.worcesterma.gov/recreation-worcester. That's www.worcesterma.gov/recreation-worcester.
You're listening to Unity 97.9 FM, WUTY. Let's talk, Worcester.
Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Shavon Meyers on Talking Wellness, and you are listening to Unity Radio 97.9 FM, Worcester's Community Connection. All right. So before we left for the break, we were just talking about, I'm like, I don't like fantasies as a therapist. Like, I think, and clients will flat out tell me, like, you're so real. And they know that, like, because I'm not harsh about anything, but it's like, wake up and smell the coffee, you know?
Well, the approach that we take is to
Yep.
really explore people's worldview.
Yeah.
I think that
That's
each
important.
person has a different views the world and their wellness or their
Mhm.
path and their situation in a different way.
Mhm.
And I don't think there can be any
Mhm.
proper support without the exploration
Absolutely.
of people's worldview, no matter what kind of professional people
Yeah.
they are. Like if
True.
you are a doctor, an attorney, a therapist, a certified peer specialist, you need to understand from that person so you're not making assumptions or avoiding as much as we can.
Yep.
What works for you? What is it
Right.
that you're looking for?
Right.
How do you see and reflect yourself in that situation?
Right.
And I think that's the beginning. So when we're joking about fantasy, perhaps in some small circumstances, that's what people might want. It's like,
Yeah, I definitely don't want to put a Band-Aid over every situation, though. But yeah, we do want to be. Some people are not ready for that harsh reality, you know.
Some are,
And
yeah.
then, and it's the way to gauge that, because then, like, how does services become very progressive for them? How does it, how is it not, countered, that sort of thing. So, we really just want to kind of look at that as well. I do respect the client's worldview, and that's how we kind of use that to guide, okay, what are some of the discrepancies that we see, or validate them even too,
And even on validation, I don't know about everyone that's listening, but I learned as a young child a list of good feelings and bad feelings. So like, they're happy, you're in the good feeling. If you're sad, it's a bad feeling.
Right.
And then I also learned that every time that I was experiencing anything from the quote unquote bad feeling list, that supporters need to do anything that they could to rescue me from that.
Right.
I've learned that since. I believe that we've put a lot of efforts and energy to create comfort zones.
Yes.
They're known places, they're
Yes.
predictable places, they're places that we feel comfortable.
Mhm.
And then we learn in peer certification school that how do you explore people's worldview? How do you ask supporting questions that
Mhm.
allow folks to reflect beyond those comfort zones, but
Right.
while respecting that their process keeps them there? Because it's not the job, at least not ours, as certified peer specialists, to drag folks out of their comfort zones. They exist for a reason. Also, as you said in the fantasy, which I loved, also not promising people a rose garden or that everything's going to be okay when in fact things might not.
Right.
I have a great story about not trying to rescue in partner. My brother passed about 2 years ago, and I spent some time with my mother in her house just to be supportive. And every night I would say, Mom, what is it that I can do? And she would just stare at nothing and say, nothing. It just hurts. And I said, would it be helpful to just sit here with you? And she would say, yes.
Right.
There's nothing I would say or do that would remove my mother from the process that she chose to be in, the mourning process.
Right.
So I do a lot of self-analysis in peer practices when it comes to feeling those experiences that are quote unquote named the bad experiences or bad feelings. I asked the students in CPS class, how many of you have ever experienced a great sadness or loss or despair, and for whatever reason, you chose to sit in those feelings for an amount of time, 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 years, and everyone raises their hand. And just to reinforce that real partnering is not promising someone something or that fantasy that you said earlier. That's not real partnering. Making false promises that everything's going to be okay. But on the other hand, how do we understand that their sadness might trigger something in me, and that might be just about me, not necessarily about their support? How do we as professionals understand that? Okay, how does it feel right now? Oh, it hurts. What do we do with it? And the person might choose to stay in the pain. And then at least in peer certification school, we learn, how do I partner with that person, support that person while not trying to drag that person out of what I perceive to be a bad or hurtful feeling, but not them at the moment.
Yeah. And also, and that brings me to when we look at the other part of it, and how I think how some therapists are, how do we, as professionals, feel comfortable bringing someone outside of their comfort zone and also leaving them in their comfort zone too? Because I feel like, the next process would be us bringing them out of their comfort zone, and not a lot of therapists are comfortable doing that because we're uncomfortable with that. And so we tend to stay in our safe zone. And that's what EMW is about. It's just, as a therapist, coming out of your safe zone, moving a little bit away from some of the traditional stuff, still keeping it there, but not being afraid to use other tools. So how do we learn to do that so we're not hindering the process for the client as well? Sometimes that happen, and a lot of the times, based off of what clients have said or individuals, you can tell, like, maybe the therapist was uncomfortable approaching maybe the husband about something if he hasn't changed and he keeps doing the same thing over and over, and it's the same story in the session, and then like the wife is being blamed because that's the comfort to say, I'm not going to address the issue with the husband. I'm just going to keep putting it towards the wife, right? And then the wife gets frustrated because she's like, well, I feel like I'm being targeted or blamed. Meanwhile, he keeps doing the same thing over and over. And we come into therapy and it's just like the same thing, and then we're going to nowhere, right? So I think that's just an example. And, just really kind of looking at that both ways as well. That's interesting.
It's very interesting. Learning how to support, because I think the heart goes out for whoever's suffering instantly, but how to do it in a way that your own baggage is not coming to surface and ultimately becoming a barrier between between you and the best support that you can.
Like you got to be comfortable
provide.
going to Compton, right?
Yes.
Some people may not be, like, or at certain places, but you're dealing with all walks of life, and you just got, someone comes to you with some situation, and that was just an example, but I'm just saying, like, and you may feel like an alien somewhere and unfamiliar with certain things, and so how do you deal with that as an individual and as a professional? And it could be both ways, Beverly Hills, not knowing what that, so it's cool. And I think it's a reevaluation on both ends, but you really do bring some strong points about the peer support. I do like that. And I do believe in the peer support aspect. And I'm glad that we do have those services, because that adds that cushion in between, and really helps the person make sure that they're supported. And then maybe they're ready for the next step, the next level.
Or the tool, and within that toolbox, as
Yes.
my analogy earlier,
Yes,
maybe
another
this
outlet.
time for this week I need a screwdriver because the hammer is working great, but I need something
Right,
else.
right.
So I never will think that peer support is a replacement service,
no,
but
absolutely.
I do believe it is a complementary service. It might be a replacement for some folks, as therapy might be a replacement for some of folks in their community, and
Absolutely.
that's okay, because
Yeah.
I think in the end of the day, every professional in human services, what we really want, we want to support the communities to heal. But I love your mission with EMW, because I believe it's harder for communities to heal when the representation isn't easily found.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we really want to, and that's all we're getting. And I love it.
I love
we
that.
we want everyone, and nothing is too strange for us at EMW.
Ooh, be careful what you're saying on radio.
My business partner is like, well, sexuality and LGBTQ, and I understand all of that, but I'm like, we also have to make sure we're not drawing unwanted attention, but we can put, human sexuality in there. Like that might be a huge thing in the LGBTQ community, and someone may be weird about, like he said, bringing
or young
forth certain
adults.
things.
I've
Young
worked with
adults.
young adults at the beginning of my career, and sex and sexuality was really what mattered for them at that moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've worked with the Latino community for a period of my career, and religion was really forefront of their wellness journey. How do we as professionals, and we mentioned that in certified peer specialist training, we really talk about conversations we have to have with adults that are willing to have those conversations, because maybe within peer practices, or maybe in clinical settings like yours, that is the only opportunity that that person might have to explore things that are really important for them.
Absolutely. I'm your host, Shavon Meyers, on Talking Wellness, and you are listening to Unity Radio, 97.9 FM, Worcester's Community Connection.